It all began in 1492 when Christopher Columbus, sailing under the Spanish crown, landed in the Caribbean. Though he believed he had reached Asia, he had in fact opened the gateway to a new world for Europe. Spain quickly established dominance, with conquistadors like Francisco Pizarro conquering the mighty Aztec and Inca empires. Fueled by gold, silver, and a mission to spread Christianity, Spain created vast colonies across South America, Central America, and parts of North America. Portugal focused on Brazil, turning it into a hub of sugar plantations worked by enslaved Africans. The Portuguese colony became one of the richest in the Americas, setting a grim example of how colonization and the slave trade were intertwined. France, meanwhile, sought profit through the fur trade rather than mass settlement. They founded Quebec in 1608, explored the Mississippi River, and built alliances with Native American tribes. Though their empire stretched widely, it was thinly populated. The English colonies began later, with Jamestown in 1607. What started as a fragile settlement soon grew prosperous through tobacco farming. Later, the Pilgrims at Plymouth in 1620 and Puritans in Massachusetts in the 1630s arrived seeking religious freedom. Unlike France or Spain, the English attracted large waves of settlers, building towns, farms, and cities that expanded rapidly. The Dutch also played a role, establishing New Amsterdam in 1624, which later became New York. Though short-lived, their influence on trade and culture was lasting. But colonization brought enormous suffering to indigenous peoples. Disease, warfare, and forced displacement devastated native populations. The transatlantic slave trade further fueled European colonies, bringing millions of Africans to the Americas under brutal conditions. As colonies grew, European rivalries reached America. The French and Indian War, part of the 7 Years' War, ended with Britain controlling much of North America. Yet this victory sowed the seeds of rebellion. Taxes and restrictions imposed by London pushed the 13 colonies to declare independence in 1776, leading to the birth of the United States. After independence, colonization continued, now driven by Americans themselves. The doctrine of manifest destiny justified expansion across the continent, displacing countless native tribes and sparking conflicts. By the 19th century, the Americas had been transformed into a patchwork of nations, shaped by European ambition, native resistance, and African resilience. Today, the colonization of America is remembered as both a story of bold exploration and a tragedy of loss. It built new nations and cultures, but left deep scars that are still felt. The history of colonization reminds us that progress often came at a human cost, and that the story of America is one of both triumph and survival. The colonization of the Americas is a complex and extensive topic. Therefore, let's break it down into smaller chunks to make it easier to understand. Chapter 1. The arrival of Europeans and the Columbian Exchange. In 1492, Christopher Columbus reached the Americas, mistakenly believing he was in India. This voyage marked the beginning of European colonization in the Americas. Let's talk about the Columbian Exchange. This was the widespread transfer of plants, animals, culture, technology, and people between the Americas and the Old World Europe, Asia, and Africa. Following Columbus's voyage, it had a profound impact on both continents. Chapter 2. The Spanish Empire in the Americas. Spain was the first European power to colonize the Americas. Their vast empire stretched from South America to Central America and parts of North America. The Spanish colonial system was shaped by the encomienda system, which allowed colonists to demand tribute and labor from indigenous people in their areas. This system often led to the mistreatment of natives. We'll also discuss the impact of the Spanish colonization on indigenous populations, including the introduction of diseases like smallpox, which devastated native communities. Chapter 3. The Portuguese in South America and the Transatlantic slave trade. Portugal's colonization efforts primarily focused on Brazil. They developed large sugar plantations worked by enslaved Africans. This marked the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, which forcibly brought millions of Africans to the Americas to work on plantations and in mines. Chapter 4. French colonization and the fur trade. France established colonies in Canada, primarily for the purpose of trading furs. They built alliances with some Native American tribes and explored the Mississippi River Valley. Despite having a significant presence in North America, the French colonies were sparsely populated compared to the Spanish and British ones. Chapter 5. The rise of British and Dutch colonialism. The British and Dutch also colonized parts of North America. The Dutch West India Company played a role in the establishment of colonies such as New Amsterdam, which later became New York. The British colonies, including those in New England and the southern colonies, grew rapidly due to a high number of European settlers. Religious motivations, particularly in New England, also contributed to the growth of these colonies. Chapter 6. The struggle for land and resources and the French and Indian War. As colonies expanded, competition for land and resources intensified, often leading to conflicts with indigenous populations. The French and Indian War, part of the larger 7 Years' War, was a significant conflict between Britain and France in North America. The war resulted in British victory and the expansion of their colonial territories. But it also contributed to growing tensions between Britain and its American colonies. Chapter 7. The American Revolution and the birth of the United States. Growing dissatisfaction with British rule in the American colonies led to the American Revolution. Key events like the Boston Tea Party and the writing of influential documents such as Thomas Paine's Common Sense fueled the movement for independence. The revolution resulted in the creation of the United States of America. Chapter 8. Further colonization and expansion. After gaining independence, the United States pursued a policy of westward expansion known as Manifest Destiny. This led to the colonization of the Western territories and the displacement and conflicts with numerous Native American tribes. Mexico and other Latin American countries also experienced internal conflicts and changes in their colonial structures during this period. Chapter 9. Legacy of colonization in the Americas. The colonization of the Americas had a profound and lasting impact. It led to the mixing of cultures, the spread of diseases, and the enslavement and oppression of indigenous populations. Understanding the legacy of colonization is crucial for comprehending the social, economic, and political dynamics of the Americas today.